Hello, my name is Roland Taylor, and I'm a designer, technical writer, and the founder of Roland Media, an open source first design agency, and I'm currently serving as the bug administrator for the Inkscape 2026 Bug Accelerator program. I'm filling in for Marhe following a recent medical situation, and we're all wishing for a smooth recovery. In this update video, we'll be looking at some really cool stuff that's been happening in Inkscape recently, fixes and changes that we managed to land, some really cool work from the community, recent translation work, extension development, and some ways that you can support Inkscape. All right, so let's start with the 2026 Bug Accelerator program and the push to get Inkscape 1.5 into good shape. Since our last update, Marhe told you we'd reached about 60% completion. But as bug administrator, I had to, of course, keep things going in the inbox and see whether there were more issues, that needed to be brought over. So I found quite a number of issues that had not been transferred over, and so I added those to the milestone list. And that brought us back down to the 50s. But I'm glad to say that as of this recording, we're now back above 60% and still going strong. That just shows how hard the developers are working to keep on top of that list and keep things moving. It's been a pleasure to work on this and to see how many features and how much functionality we've been able to include. We've actually been able to add even more features to 1.5 than expected, and we've managed to address some problems that have existed in Inkscape for many years. We're still looking at smaller features and fixes that would really improve things, and we really appreciate your help with UX and testing and discussion. Even non-coders are welcome to join. If you're a coder and you can help in that way, we definitely appreciate that as well. Any way you can help, join in. All right, so let's take a look at some of the fixes and changes landed through the Bug Accelerator program this week. And kudos to Mike and Sean, who will be working hard and landing a lot of useful fixes and improvements. First of all, we have document tabs, which is work that Mike did. Since the last update, we've successfully landed the full UI and UX for document tab changes. Document tabs can only scroll using the mouse wheel, and scrolling now switches the active document correctly instead of only moving through the tab bar. Left and right navigation buttons have also been added, and there's a drop down menu that lets you select from your open documents. Document and dialog tabs also follow the GTK theme correctly, and together these changes make working with large numbers of open documents much more practical. And my favorite part of all these changes is that we now also have tab previews for open documents, so you can see what you're working on without actually having to click on it. And then the next change is from Sean. This one is a change to the startup screen's close button so that it's easier to see. So when you change splash screens, the styling remains consistent across them, but we needed a style that allows the button to remain visible. And that's because it's both an accessibility issue and a general user experience issue. So what we have may not be ideal currently, but it works more reliably across different splash screens. And we still would like some input. So if there's anyone out there who has a better way of doing this that's more aesthetically pleasing but will remain consistent, we would definitely appreciate that input. The next set of work here is surrounding the unified font browser and text controls. These would have been worked on by Mike. The Unified Font Browser, basically, we're trying to make that no longer an experimental feature in 1.5, but a standard feature. So many of the changes we're working on are aimed at improving it. And Mike, first of all, added a combined font size and unit control because previously we just had a number for the font size and it didn't make much sense without displaying a unit. And also, of course, we have that slider which we are planning to get rid of because it doesn't really make much sense having a slider for font size. You can now change both the font size and the unit from the same control, and clearing the font collection filter is the other change he made there. That also refreshes the list correctly. So the next change that Mike worked on, which is not a part of the Unified Font Browser, is to make text alignment resetting. Well, make text alignment reset while creating a text element. So previously, he fixed text alignment resetting while creating a text element. So previously, Inkscape would reset the alignment instead of preserving the selected setting. So basically, when you were creating text, so you set your alignment is supposed to stay as you set it. Inkscape would just decide to reset to a default value. That no longer happens. So the next change here is two changes to grids. This is from Sean, and basically we have one where the show grid value is not based on the visibility status of the grids themselves. This is a value that's stored in the SVG file. And this means that the control should now more accurately represent whether grids are visible or not. And by visible, we don't mean enabled or disabled. That's a totally separate setting. You can now disable a grid completely, or you can set a grid to be visible or invisible, but there is no a working global setting. So we have a global setting that was already there. It didn't work previously. We fixed that. Also, grid alpha or transparency is restored correctly when a document is loaded. So previously, a grid could reopen without retaining the transparency that had been configured for it. So like it would save with your file, but then when you load it, it would not retain its transparency. Sean fixed that. And finally, from Sean we have, well, not finally, sorry, there. This is the next change from Sean. We have the wording of the paste menu has been updated. So Sean reworded the paste related items in the canvas context menu to make their purpose clearer. So corresponding items in the main edit menu have also been updated, and this should make the differences between available paste actions easier to understand. Next, we have the some changes to the pen and pencil tools from Mike. Mike added gaps around pen and pencil points where they were needed. And without those gaps, points could overlap while drawing and causing various visual and interaction problems. Also, we have a fix to spiral previews because those were pretty jumpy. It's still not perfect because of the underlying algorithm, but they now work much more smoothly. And Sean also added a fix for LPE handles. So this would be the node that you see when you add a live path effect to your objects. Sean restored the previous appearance because 1.5 had changed it to look more like other nodes. So they now use their own style, and that basically should make them easier to distinguish from regular nodes again. So we have also some other changes from Mike and Sean, and I'll just list those by name, by the developer who worked on them. So Mike, he would have fixed the sorting of parent and child nodes. If I remember correctly, this fixes a crash with layers. Also, he made it so that zero length paths could be selected. So if you have a path with multiple nodes that are basically on the same coordinates, you can select them with your mouse node. He also made a fix for rectangles inheriting the viewport size from a sibling image that no longer happens. He fixed an incorrect selection that occurred when deleting an object while the XML editor was open. And one that I'm really glad to see is he fixed the HSL values so that they use percentage signs, which is required by the specification. So if you would have saved the file in 1.5 before and it was using HSL values, it would have loaded incorrectly. Like some of those colors would have just shown as black. That will no longer happen. He also fixed Fits drag and drop in the filter effects dialog. This was broken by GTK4. They switched to GTK4 and he fixed it. Also, there's a fix for node selection scrolling conflicting with the canvas zoom. So those both use the same modifier. Mike has fixed that. Also, there is a fix to export margin, the export margin command line option that has been restored for some file formats, but there are other file formats where restoration still needs to happen, but at least the initial fixes are in place now. So Mike also added a feature where, well, an error really. I know adding an error may seem a little confusing, but he added an error when a file is in the open recent menu, but it can no longer be loaded. Previously, if you tried to load a file and it didn't exist anymore, Inkscape would just silently fail. So now there's an error there, and in the future, he will be, if not Mike, someone will be adding feature where it can also silently remove those in the background. Also, he landed a fix for the list of embedded scripts to be updated when a document is replaced. So basically, if you replace a script, the list of embedded scripts will update when you load that document. Finally, for Mike, there's a fix or an X11 specific preference. Basically, there's a preference for showing dialogues in the taskbar that's hidden on other platforms that is now removed on other platforms, but it works still on X11. The changes from Sean restored constraint dragging in the default configuration, so you can now hold control and drag again. That wasn't working as it should. He changed the color picker label so that it uses the shorthand name of the selected color space. Also, actions that require parameters that haven't been provided are no longer displayed in the shortcuts list. Inkscape no longer produces unnecessary warnings when it encounters URIs that aren't local files. Scalar unit limits are no longer converted by default. And Sean also fixed a crash that occurred while opening some extensions. And then also from Sean, we have a fix for the reference to the obsolete window position saving setting. That has been removed now because GTK4 removed that setting due to Wayland dropping support for it. But we may reintroduce that. That's still tentative. We may reintroduce it if we can come up with a platform independent solution. Um, Also, there's a fix for rapid changes to several spin buttons, so there are no debunks, which means that they don't create excessive undo entries every time you make a change. Also, Sean landed a fix for shift selecting layers in the layers and objects dialog, so that now works. And finally, from Sean, white is used as the default specular color, preventing some affected files from appearing blank when they're loading. The previous color was black, which meant that the file would load as transparent because the color is treated as a mask on the object. So that basically is just a small portion of all the fixes and changes going into 1.5. And there are obviously more fixes to go. We encourage you to test development builds wherever you can and let us know what you think can be improved. In terms of extensions, there's one I'd really like to highlight, and it's called PNP Ink. It's written by a user named Zoel. Now, PNP Ink allows you to create data-driven designs such as playing cards, flashcards, or any kind of repeatable design that uses varying data across datasets. You can feed it a dataset such as a CSV file or a spreadsheet, and it generates design data for you. So it works on the fly. and you can change the file, and basically it updates the design automatically. Now, what I found really exciting is that Zoel mentioned the potential of adding font creation support to PNP8, which I think would be pretty awesome. Now, you can currently create SVG fonts in Inkscape, and you can use tools such as FontForge and BirdFont to create fonts. But it would be even easier if you could provide a list of glyphs or designs and have an extension generate that font for you. And that's something I'm personally looking forward to if it's actually implemented. Now, extensions in general are one of the ways that you can support and extend Inkscape, even if you're not a C++ developer. And all you really need to do is learn Python and dive in. Next, let's look at a couple of community highlights that showcase how Inkscape can be used. The first project is a film by Jorge del Campo Andrade called Flower's Thief, and it's a film that showcases open source principles and also uses open source software, including Inkscape. I found this one to be pretty interesting, and I saw the trailer and I'd actually like to see the full film. It's it also has gained some awards, which I found to be pretty cool too. And it's because you don't really see open source breaking in such a way. So that's a nice thing to see open source being recognized at this level. And the next one also is called Sky Lobby. This is a um, elevator management simulation game. And the developer said that he's not a designer, but he's been using Inkscape for around 50 years and found it pretty easy to use for both the game's graphics and marketing. And these are two examples of the different ways Inkscape can be used for real creative projects. Okay, so next let's take a look at some translation work. Now we have two bits of translation work that have been happening recently. First is by Kaya Zerin, who's been working on the Turkish translation, and Yosef Faleke has been working on the Amharic translation effort, which was started before, but the work had not really gone very far, so he is basically trying to bring it up to standard and make that actually usable. So other members of the transition team and community have been helping them to navigate the transition system and get these efforts moving forward. Now, transition is one of the most important parts of any project. It's not only a community contribution, but a technical contribution. Translators help more people to use the software, and it is an important part of accessibility. And that's why we really appreciate the translators. Contributing to Inkscape is not only about being a C++ developer, but it's also several different areas. So, for example, you can write Python extensions if you are so skilled or gifted in that area. You can also test development versions, report problems, and help to triage issues. We often receive reports involving platforms and configurations that developers, contractors, and other contributors don't have access to. So, testing on these systems can be extremely useful. You can contribute translations or write documentation and tutorials, and you never know who may need your particular way of explaining something. You can create artwork and templates, and we definitely encourage people to showcase their work and demonstrate that free software can be used to produce strong professional results. No, we definitely need people to help with UX and accessibility because these are two areas where we are really desperately in need of some assistance. And if you even simply have an informed opinion or can participate in a discussion, that contribution is welcome as well. Now, we need help with community organization, sharing, and spreading the word. So if that's you, definitely feel free to jump in there. And whatever you can bring to the table, all are welcome. Now let's talk a little bit about support and donations. if you believe in the work that we're doing and you want to support the project and Martin, there are several ways you can help. You can donate to the Inkscape project directly, links will be in the description, or you can support Martin through LibrePay, Patreon, Ko-fi, or any of the other options provided. Financial support definitely helps this project pay developers, contractors, and other people involved in making Inkscape what it is. So if you want to contribute your time and skills, or test development versions and report useful findings, we also welcome that. But we certainly could really do with your donations so you can help to push the work forward. So one of the other ways that you can help if you are not able to donate, or even if you can just jump in and help others. That definitely will help to, push things forward and even sometimes take the load off of us too. But yeah, we definitely encourage you to get involved in any way you can. And definitely we encourage you to share Inkscape and the work that this community is doing. Even share this video and help others to know what's happening. So all these things help to push Inkscape forward. That's it for this update video, but definitely stick around so you can get more updates and all of the good stuff happening in 1.5. And definitely make sure that you subscribe to his channel and you follow what's happening. Stay around for all the good stuff. So quick shout out to all the developers and contributors, whether you contribute via code or not. Even if you're just a contributor by donations or you just love Inkscape and love this work, we encourage you to keep going and keep things moving forward. So yeah, until then, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel, like the video, and we will see you around.